But, I'm wondering, Pam, if we can just get started
Yes,
while you're
please
loading
do.
up.
Yes,
Yeah.
go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 3:50, and you guys, I'm sorry for, ladies, I should say, I'm sorry for starting late. We kind of have a dog emergency on our hands. So I may have to bow out, but I'll try to stay here as long as possible.
I hope your dog's okay.
Me too. I don't know. She just collapsed on the way, my way out the door, like literally collapsed.
Do you want to exit from this meeting and we just go move forward?
No, I'm here now, so let's just proceed, and if I have to leave, you'll know why.
Okay. All right. Well, I hope things are okay.
Me too. Thank you.
Great. The first item on the list is due process facilitators. So I invited Marsha Walker, our special education director, and Sherry Johnson. We all know Sherry is the executive director of GCD, but they're just going to talk about what we're planning to do for next year with our due process facilitators, and I think you'll really like the plan. So I don't know, Sherry, Marsha, who wants to speak first?
I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and then Marsha's going to take it from there. So first, I want to really thank the board for your continued support of the special ed department, especially the study last year, taking the time to do that, finding the company to do that, just to get us some really good objective data to look at. We've really refined and incorporated those findings into a plan that we think is going to provide consistent, timely, and fiscally responsible support for the department. And we just want to quickly share the details of the plan and why we believe it's a good direction to move forward. I also want to thank the board for allowing us to post for those 2 additional positions, teaching positions, which will allow us to move this plan forward. And so with 21 days under her belt, Marsha's going to speak to the plan for administrative support. Marsha, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, and I want to also extend that gratitude to the board for that study and for the additional 2 teachers. What that is going to do is enhance what the due process facilitators have been able to do this school year. They are on-site professional developers who work collaboratively with our teachers, empowering them with the skills to do their work. When someone is directly on site, they know exactly what is going on and are picking up on the little nuances that are part of the building. So really being able to target what are the strengths in the building and what are the growth areas. Sometimes with the director, and you have more than one site, I might not be in the right building at the right time for the right need. But when you have someone in the building, a go-to person that I'm working directly with, so they're reporting to me and they're working with their building staff, that provides that cohesive communication in the areas with due process regarding to the things that we need to be compliant with, but also with instructional practices. So it's a very collaborative work that they do. And I'm really looking forward to continuing to get to know our due process facilitators. I've already had, what have I had? I think I've had 2 meetings with them, and I have 1 more scheduled coming up this school year, and I might even have 2 more coming up with them to go over some things. But it's been really good work. The other thing that I just wanted to add to that is it's not only the compliance and the instructional strategies, a direction that's really important to me is really looking at our data to inform our practices. And so our due process facilitators will also be able to do that in the building with their special education teachers to really look at that data and inform our practices. So again, I just want to thank you for supporting this. It's really good work. I'm excited to be part of it. And do you have any questions for Sherry or I?
Before we go to those, Jennifer, just as a little bit of background for you, we went to a due process facilitator model this past fall. Well, we'd had it before, but we didn't put the intensity into it, and we now have it in every building. So what those are more senior special education teachers, and they have one period a day that's devoted to this work. That's this current year. And what we're proposing is next year they will go to 2 or 3 periods a day, depending on if we can fill all the positions to continue that support. And they've been able to model for staff and whatever. So I wanted to it's a teacher on special assignment for that one part of their day.
Thank you for that, Sherry.
Yeah.
Holly had her hand raised.
Are we looking at having 2 for the high school based on the number of grade levels? Or how are we working with the high school in that component? Because it's not the same as Sunnyside and Burnside.
So we would continue the model with the one due process facilitator with the increased time at the high school. I meet with the due process facilitator at the high school once a week. So we have set up, I will have more frequent meetings and more frequent contact to support the work at the high school, Holly.
Great. So will that person then have a full release of their day doing due process duties? How will that balance into the amount of need at the high school versus the other schools?
Right now, that's not our plan, but we will certainly monitor that. We believe that she's, with the time that we're allotting, that she is going to be able to do it. So if you think about it this way, there's certain tasks that every due process coordinator needs to do, regardless of the size of the staff in the building. That's the same for all of them. Where the differences would be student schedules, paraprofessional schedules, and Marcia's been meeting with the high school principals, and they've really been supporting some of that work, especially with paraprofessional schedules and professional development for them. So we see more of a hands-on with that admin team too, which I think really helps gen ed and special ed become one. Good question.
So where are the other ones then placed? Just so I have a breakdown.
So we would have one at each building. So again, it would be Burnside, Twin Bluff, and at, oh my goodness gracious.
It's okay.
I'm nervous. And at Sunnyside, and then the high school.
All right.
You said 2 at our high school? Just 1 at our high school. Okay.
Yeah, currently, but.
And we can continue to review that and monitor that. I'm hearing that that's a concern of yours, so we'll make sure that we're monitoring that.
Has this committee gotten a chance to see the job description like you sent to me?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea as far as, kind of wrapping our heads around. I see a lot of mini admin responsibilities in those roles, but I want to make sure that it's very clear that they're not giving directives to teachers and they're not acting as pseudo directive givers based on, directives from their supervisors. So no coaching or facilitating is a directive. It's an ask. It's a gentle, will you, can you, how can I help? And I'd kind of like to see that in the language for the job description, just so it's really clear to the staff, new and old. I've seen it kind of get mucky when coaches or facilitators try to tell other teachers to do things because they're all in the same contract. And then it gets a little bit like, wait a minute, you're not my boss. How does this really work? So that's something I think that, could be somehow put into the job description in terms of the support that teachers get and that paras get and that families get.
And we'll send out that job description as well, so everybody can take a look at that. Thank you, Holly.
Anything else about the due process facilitators? Way back in the day, I used to work in special ed, and I know how much we need these folks. I do, so I'm glad to hear that we're able to really focus in on that, so thank you.
Well, thank you, Sherry and Marcia. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but please do not feel obligated.
All right, I sent that, so you all should have it. And I also sent it to Amy, but I know she has it because she actually, I think, gave it to me, but I just want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
I have it. Can you see me still on the screen right now?
Yep.
Okay. Because I'm looking at my emails that came through. So now
It's
I'm
so
looking.
crazy because when you talk, it comes in through in-person attendees. It doesn't come across from your screen. Does that make sense?
For me as well, too, right, Holly?
What?
Does that count for both Pam and me?
Yep. So
Yeah.
it looks really crazy because the little green dots move in another area, but you guys are talking. So before it was throwing me off, but I'm getting it now.
Yeah, and that's just because we're Pam is here in the room because it's a hybrid meeting, and so we turn off our microphones and use the speaker. That's why it comes up that way. It's confusing, and it's kind of frustrating because then people in the community can't see the person speaking, not only for committee meetings but the regular board meetings.
Yeah, it took me a minute to wrap my head around it. I knew you were using a shared mic. I just didn't quite put it all together.
Yeah.
Well, the next item on our agenda is the superintendent succession planning, which we've been having in the hopper for a while now. It looks like Superintendent Anderson put some things together for us to review.
Yeah, and the 2-page document is based partly on information from New Ulm Public Schools. I think the superintendent and school board chair from New Ulm gave a presentation at a school board association conference, and that's where Pam learned of their work. I did contact their superintendent and received permission to use much of their document, but I've also made changes too to kind of tailor it to Red Wing situations. So, and by the way, this is a first draft. It will get better maybe before the board approves it, and certainly as we go through it year by year, we'll constantly see changes, and we'll make those changes, I'm sure. But the first major section has to do with emergency or short-term absences. And so right now the plan is that the high school principal would essentially complete superintendent duties that do not require a superintendent's license. And I asked the question of MSBA, well, what responsibilities require a superintendent's licensure? And they did not give a real definitive response, but referred me to some other places. And so I tried to keep this part as vague as possible. But the most important thing that comes to mind would be supervision of the principals and the director of community education and recreation, plus special education director, because those are all licensed positions by the state of Minnesota. And so you'd need a superintendent's license to evaluate. Similar to what Holly was just talking about with the due process facilitators, you don't want them to be supervising people who are in their own bargaining group. So you need somebody with a superintendent's license to do that work. Also, there might be some circumstances when there's a report to the state that might indicate or have a signature line that says superintendent. And so, that would typically require a licensed superintendent signature, or perhaps, notifying the state for that particular report that, somebody's acting on my behalf if I'm not here, something like that. Usually the short-term absences would come into play, like if I'm on vacation, or I'm not reachable by phone, if I had a car accident and I'm in the hospital for a week, something like that. And this is very similar to what we've done in the past. So the high school principal would do much of that work, and then the business manager would supervise Director of Buildings and Grounds, Director of Technology, Nutrition Services Director, and the Transportation Services. Those would be the responsibilities that a business manager would typically have, if the position was full-time and it was a more traditional model.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask that because our business manager is not full-time. So is that appropriate? And that's something we're gonna have to discuss because all of those duties will need to be supervised, but maybe that looks different than what's here.
Right. Yeah. And this first section is like if I'm gone for a few days, maybe up to 15 days is what I just kind of threw out there.
Yep.
And certainly, the principal and the business manager can handle those responsibilities short term. I've never been unavailable, so, if I'm on vacation, I'm always reachable by phone or by email. Those kinds of things. So I think it's unlikely that there's going to be an emergency really, but it's nice to have it in policy, just in case.
Well, and I will say that two things that brought this to the forefront was one, I went to that conference that spoke of this and I didn't really know what our plan was. And two, we had a superintendent who, there are people who out there have COVID.
Right. And I had COVID.
And so we need to be, and that, thank goodness, did not end in anything that we needed to act upon because you were available every single day during that time. But had you not been, I think it needs to be spelled out very clearly what we do. And for me as the chair, and I'll take full ownership of this, I need to know. And any chair in the future needs to know exactly what we do if something does happen, because yes, vacations, we can plan for that, but we never plan for a car accident, God forbid, or any other major illness that might take you out of play for 2 weeks. So I just think that it's really important to have something here. So thank you.
No, I think this makes good sense. And one thing, it will be in the school board procedures manual, which will be reviewed by the school board on a yearly basis. So every year we can kind of review the content so people are at least aware. That's half the battle, is just making sure people know something exists and where it is.
Yes.
So the second part of this would be I just threw out 15 consecutive working days just as kind of an example, but we could consider assigning or hiring someone to act as an acting superintendent if I'm not able to fulfill my duties, for at least 15 consecutive working days. Again, that could be 30 consecutive working days. It could be any number that we want, and we want flexibility. If we do that, the acting superintendent should be licensed as a superintendent of Minnesota. We could either designate that appointment in this handbook, or we could hire someone, as necessary. And then I listed some potential candidates. Could be current employees who are appropriately licensed. It could be past employees. Neighboring superintendents might be the most logical, or individuals, recommended by one of the state associations. And again, those are just examples of who we could target. The superintendent and the acting superintendent would kind of review roles and duties and some major decisions. So if something happened, then the acting superintendent, could jump in and just keep going on the work. And then the high school principal and business manager would likely complete the tasks that they would, if it was a short-term absence. Again, that's all to be determined, and it kind of depends on if somebody has a already full-time job or not, if they're the acting superintendent. So anyway, that's what I have down for, that particular situation, if it's going to be kind of for a long period of time and we need somebody with a superintendent's license.
Can we just add, and I don't know if this is appropriate here or not, but, you know, under number 2, if we have to go this route, like number 1, we don't really have to make a huge announcement to the community or the district that, you know, you're going to be gone for 6 days, you know, and the principal's going to follow your job description. Maybe we do, maybe we want to have that communicated across the district. But in number 2 scenario, I think we need to have some sort of communication plan as well, like who's notified, how are they notified, who notifies district staff of this change, who, you know, it says the school board. So, you know, obviously the school board's going to need to consider assigning and hiring someone, but how are we going to communicate that out, and who's in charge of that? So, you know, in your absence, I don't know that I would know who would be the best person. So I'm just saying that I think we need to have, you know, just maybe a line on communication, like who's going to be the person responsible for communicating to the community and the district staff, you know, what the next steps and plan are. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It makes complete sense. It's really, it's just adding more detail into an area that could get very murky. Like, how many emails do we want going out to people about the situation? 1.
Right.
And who is going to be the sender?
Right.
And even if it's really, you know, very basic stuff like this person's going to be the acting superintendent, you can reach him or her by emailing blank. You know, just, you know, obviously more detail, but the contact information might be the most important part of that. But I can easily add a bullet under number 2.
Well, and I just think the clearer and more concise we can be, because in scenario number 2, I think there may be more of a chaotic event that might occur, you know, and so no one's going to be at their best if we're working under the gun and feeling like, you know, if there's high emotion, it could be high emotion, who knows? And, you know, I just think the more we can spell it out so that if we are in that scenario, we're following good protocol. And I mean, I'm just speaking for myself, because if this happened under my watch, it would be highly emotionally charged. Your principal would be highly emotional, lots of staff, you know, and so if I have something to fall back on, and I haven't you know, I don't want to miss a step, like, oh, shoot, you know, of course the community members are going to be like, oh, and and parents are going to be like, what's going on? I heard this or whatever. You know, I think it needs to be timely.
So you're saying, like, step 1, within 24 hours, someone will contact school staff. Step 2, within 36 hours, this person will contact the community. You know, does it, you know, like, kind of, because we have to be, you know, we send an email to the staff, it might not be the same email we would send to the community, or, you know, does it go on Facebook? Does it go in the paper? Do we specifically say it does not go in the paper? It does not go, you know, where does it get shared? How does it get shared? Who does the sharing? And in what time frame? That's what I'm hearing you say, Pam?
Yes, that's where I'm coming from. I just think, and I don't know that we need 12 hours, 24 hours, but yes, who needs to be contacted? Who's going to be the lead communicator? We need to have a consistent message across all avenues. And if we have many communicators, that consistent message will get lost. Yes.
Right. And I'm going with the time frame just in the essence of we're employed, not we. The district people are employed by the community. You know, it's that tax base, like, we're paying taxes. We need to know what's going on in a way that, you know, we're informed just as quick as we can be versus, it's not
We
a
owe that
private
to
corporation.
because, you know, God forbid something bad happens, the community needs to know that we got this. You know, we're professional, we've got a plan, we're going to stick to the plan. We're going to be okay. Your kids are still going to go to school. We're going to be okay, but here's our process. So, yeah.
Sounds good. And then, we should decide at some point if we want to designate somebody now as the acting superintendent, or if we want to go through, a certain process of selecting that person.
I'm not comfortable with doing it now.
Oh, yeah. Or when I say now, I mean, in the near future, or, we just have to decide on when we determine who an acting superintendent might be. If we want to adopt it every year, or if you want to do it just when the situation happens, that kind of thing.
Say
So,
more on that.
well, for example, if we had a principal that with a superintendent's license who could serve as the acting superintendent if I'm not here, we could actually designate that person as part of this handbook. So we could say that Jen Grove, and I'm just making this up, that Jen Grove will act as the acting superintendent in my absence. And so it could actually be part of the handbook. And so it's just whenever it's decided that it's needed, that, it'd be a very easy communications then because the decision's already been made. Or we could wait until there was a particular situation and then look for someone to serve as the acting superintendent. The only problem is that takes time. So, and I'm okay either way, but at some point we'll have to decide which way we want to go on it.
I hear you, and I'll give two scenarios back. One, pulling a principal from their already busy job to step into, another, then who steps into their job, and then who steps into their job. That's why I'm hesitant on naming somebody. Oftentimes when we have people that are out in a bigger school or a bigger district, it's not somebody steps in for them that's already an employee, but we can count on somebody coming in to sub for them in a professional manner. So that's why I say I'm not ready to name somebody, because that person then can't do their job. And if they're expected to do their job and your job, why wouldn't they be doing it already? Like, that's too much.
Right. I will tell you that the ideal situation would probably be a retired superintendent who might have an affiliation with the school district. Or there are some consulting companies that actually hire people to serve as acting superintendents.
Right.
Now, usually for longer terms, but after this gets approved, the board or I could certainly reach out to some of these people or companies to see what they offer. So at least we have their names and numbers on our list, so we don't waste time.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say, to have a list of people that we could go directly to. Not that we have to name one person right now, because we might have, depending on the scenario, it might be a different person that we would want, depending on how long it is or, what the situation is. But to have a list would be very beneficial.
Kind of
Well,
like
and
a
I would-
sub call.
Yeah.
Like, who's
Right.
our
Yeah. Well, and there are people in our district. I mean, who knows? Like, I think for me as the current chair and for, thinking about in the future, I mean, who knows what the scenario is, but if it was a Jen Grove and it was only going to be a few days, or she just, everything could go on as normal, but she needed to sign some papers for the state, or if it wasn't too taxing, I mean, I think it would be helpful to know who even has that in our district that we could be go-to people in a chaotic situation. And then, when I went to this conference, they said your first call could be MSBA. They can get, they'll be able to walk you through the process too. So we always have that resource. So that's another person on our list that we could go to, because they'll have a list too, but it's just 2 calls away instead of 1 click or 1
right?
call.
And I'm just real hesitant with people that haven't done the job stepping in to do the job.
Yep. And
Right.
like I said, if it's an easy thing, who knows? I mean, I think, any scenario under the sun could happen. I mean, we just can't plan or predict any of that, but I think, more in this situation is better than less. More names, more numbers, more support. And
I
then
think more
we have
detail.
something. Yeah, and then I would say not naming somebody. I agree with you, Holly, for the same reasons you just said. But if we had a list, that would be great.
Yeah.
I have
and that,
another.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just going to say I have another question on number 2. The last bullet point: principal and business manager will complete tasks in the aforementioned section. Is that a for sure? I'm just not sure when you explained it. So they will do what was done above, even if it's over the 15 consecutive working days? Or is that a maybe?
I think I should change that from will to may.
Okay.
Yeah. For example, the reason I say that is that if we hired someone who's been a superintendent, in other districts, that person could step in and just take care of things. It's not, so we don't need the high school principal and business manager to do that. If it was a stopgap measure for, let's say, for 20 days, it's easier for us just to have someone internally take it on. Then we'd still need the principal and business manager to do that extra work. So I'll definitely change that last to May.
That sounds good.
I'm just really glad we're doing this and getting into this detail. So good job, Pam.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry that for the longest time I was just thinking the short-term absences. So it took, then finally it clicked in, and the new home example I thought was a good one to start with. But there's more on the next page. At some point there'll be a need for a permanent leadership change. And that could be because, perhaps the board decides not to negotiate an extension for me, or there's a resignation, retirement, or even a termination. Then there'd be a permanent leadership change. The school board could consider hiring an outside consultant, such as MSBA, to conduct a search. A lot of schools do that. MSBA is not the only consulting firm that does that. When we compile a list of people who could provide interim superintendents or acting superintendents, then we'll also have our list of consultants who could do searches, because they're often the same company. So we can compile that. You don't have to do an outside consultant. The board can do it itself. So that'll be a decision the board will have to make. Then obviously the school board establishes the hiring process, sets the timelines and schedules for recruitment. The information is communicated with the public so everyone knows what's going on. What New Ulm suggested is that the chair serves as the official spokesperson for the district and handles all media contacts and external inquiries. So it could be somebody else on the board, or maybe the chair could designate or delegate that responsibility to somebody else, but that's what New Ulm did. The board screens, interviews, and selects a candidate, and then negotiates the contract. And then the last item I think is, really important. And this has happened with every superintendency I've taken, is that the new superintendent, wants to work with the outgoing superintendent, as well as the school board chair, to kind of determine a transition options and timelines. So, for example, when I came to Red Wing, I had an understanding with Red Wing schools that I would work for 5 or 10 days in Red Wing before July 1st, and then 5 or 10 days in Watertown Mare after July 1st. So that there's a transition there. That gave me the chance to at least meet people in Red Wing. I came down on weekends, took vacation days, that kind of thing. And then I just traded the time. That's very common and works very well. There could be, an overlap of work. That's another option. I don't see this as much, but there are some benefits to it. So, for example, I have a 2-year contract coming up, but let's say you decide during the first year of the contract that, Karsten, thanks for years of service, but we want to go in a different direction at the end of the 2-year contract. Theoretically, you could, you'd have to work with me, on it, but we could essentially hire my replacement even as I'm working in the district. So perhaps there's an overlap of 6 months or even a whole year. I know that costs money, but that would really lead to a very smooth transition, just because of the extra time. And then also there could be part-time consulting or work. For example, if I was resigning or retiring, I might be willing to do some part-time work, or, whoever that might be, might be able to do some part-time work. So again, we aren't deciding what that looks like. I just wanted to throw those options out for you, so it's on paper, essentially. And then if you're okay, under item 8 there, where at the very end it says and part-time consulting, what I'll do is just say and part-time consulting or employment, just because it's a broader thing. Any questions about that section?
No, I really like that there's steps here. I think it walks us through the process, which is very helpful. Holly or Jennifer, what do you think?
I think it's a good start. And I'd like to hear more from the rest of the board on some of their ideas or how they envision, some of this, just because we can always get more feedback around a big decision. And so, I don't know, I just think it's a good start and something that should always be part of the plan book, not after the fact or in the event of, but should
Or
just
in the middle of?
or in the middle of, it should just be. And then if the board wants to eventually change it and make a new scenario, then whatever board can do that based on, how this did or didn't work. But I think for both sections, it's a good place to start.
Yeah, and that's the intent, is just as a starting point.
Well,
Yeah,
and
I
the
agree.
conference I was at, go ahead.
Your turn,
Sorry, I
Jennifer.
just said I agree, Pam. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the conference that I was at really recommended that we review this publicly on a yearly basis. That way the community knows that we've got a plan and the staff know that we have a plan. And then every board coming in knows that we have a plan. So, this is a good start, but this will be a yearly, we'll put this in our yearly rotation now of things that we review.
And then the next section has to do with leadership development. Often, finding internal people is a great way to have a smooth transition. So, we want to make a commitment to mentor and encourage people to participate in administrative programs. And that would include not only superintendents, but also principals, special ed directors, community education directors. We want our people to have an interest in that and to pursue some educational opportunities so they become licensed. It's just better for everyone.
Have we not been doing that?
Not aggressively, just kind of happens, naturally. Well, it's been happening naturally. I mean, we've had some good luck with, for example, Mike Pagel's now principal, Jen Grove is a principal. So we've had some good luck, but I think we need to continue doing that, but even be more aggressive in finding people. And then, we do this, in other situations too, but we want, people who are interested in that administrative work to take on special projects and to participate in committees as much as possible, because the best way to learn the work is to do it. And so we want to encourage people to do that. And then I'll ask Amy to maintain a roster of staff who hold administrative licenses. So again, that's just not the superintendent, it's also principal and the others that I mentioned. And if there's a way for her to list those who are enrolled in administrative programs, we'd like her to maintain that list as well. And that's not as hard as it sounds, because we do have some teachers who put in lanes change requests that are based primarily on a participation in administrative programs. And so if we can just capture who is doing that, then at least we'll know who's kind of in the pipeline or who's shown an interest in that way.
I have a small concern with that, because somebody might want to pursue something privately, and they don't want to be on anybody's list.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. It'd be just because you're on the list doesn't mean that it would be public. In fact, I don't think.
That still feels really weird to me because I'm, for all of my peers that are in administrative programs, they're not on a list at the district office so that the school board has access. That to me just feels weird.
Well, one option is that we could just put the period after staff who hold administrative licenses, period, and then we'll leave the rest off. And really that change wouldn't impact this section because, we'd only choose somebody who is currently licensed anyway, to replace me or to replace a principal. So yeah, if Jennifer and Pam are okay with that, I can just follow your suggestion, Holly. I'll just cross off everything that says, and those enrolled in administrative program.
And it's also overreaching, I think. We don't just filter people into positions because they're from Red Wing or they work in the district. And I don't want people to get the idea that that's how we, oh, you're on the list, you're automatically slated for the next job, which is, I know not what you're saying, but for somebody who might not be aware of what you're doing, that's what it sounds like.
Sure.
This isn't a feeder program to keep the culture the same. We need to be looking for outside people to be stepping into the roles to expound on our diversity and our equity work. So I don't, that's a concern to me. It sounds like we're doing two things. One, we want people from Red Wing to be able to step into positions. Two, we don't have a lot of diversity in leadership and in people in positions of power. So we can't really focus on both. And I think we should be focusing on creating a more diverse workplace.
Do you think that whole or the whole third bullet point there should be deleted? Or just
I'm not
the very
so
last
sure
part?
about, I'm just, we can't be talking out of both sides of our mouth. We need a diverse work climate. We need a diverse culture. But yet at the same time, we're saying people in Red Wing, we really want you to be able to build in and step into. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, don't we want a workforce that has opportunity for growth and more educational opportunities though too? I mean, maybe this is not the right place to put it in.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I think it's, of course you want people to pursue higher education. It's expensive. Nobody's paying for people to get more degrees. So of course you want your workforce to always be, enhancing their practice and doing better. But we are not in a position right now to say, well, this is the Red Wing workforce and you have an in because you're on this list in HR. That could get really mucky when you're trying to do an equal employment opportunity. Someone from the outside won't be on a list.
Yeah, I think you make a couple good points. First, as far as privacy, because if you're on a list, you're more likely, that information to be shared, even though that's not our intent. But privacy and then also fairness are the 2 points. So do you think the whole third point there should just be crossed off, or just the part where it says, and those enrolled in administrative program? Or should I add some sort of statement saying that?
If we look at our hiring practices right now, there have been some issues. I don't want us to get into a situation where we create more issues when we don't need to.
Right.
To me, this just feels like another issue that we could get in trouble for.
Does leadership development need to be a part of this when we're talking about succession?
That's a good question.
Or is there another section where that could be included if we have, when we're talking about hiring practices, that might be included in that. And then what Holly is talking about with equity, I know that's something that we're talking about in the future, if we could have statements in terms of looking beyond as well. Because it's valuable to look at the people that we have within the community and within our school already because of the experience that they have and the knowledge they have of what's happening. But it is incredibly valuable now to look outside so that we, our administrators obviously look more like our students, and we have more diversity in the in our admin and those that have power within the district. So I agree with what Holly's saying. I'm just wondering if this whole leadership development isn't necessary in this spot. But I don't know
think
where it
that's
would
a
go.
good suggestion. I think we could cross it off, and then, as we determine other planning and handbooks, it might just be a logical place for it. I don't know where that would be, but really that part is not necessary. So I think it's
agree.
better just to cross it off.
I agree. And then if
Yeah.
you look up above at bullet point number 3 under permanent leadership changes, it says the school board establishes a hiring process. What we should add there is following district procedures or in conjunction with
Equal
our,
opportunity employment policy and law.
well, and I know that would, yes, I mean, that's
We didn't- I
always.
mean, we have violated that. So we need to make sure that we're not only doing it, but we're doing it with a very clear lens.
Yes. So I don't know if we need to add something on number 3 that says we're gonna follow our district hiring procedures or work with human resources.
I think what you just said, following district hiring procedures. And then the only issue would be timing. So do you want the deadline to be on February 15th or March 3rd? That kind of stuff. So I'll just say following district hiring processes. I think that's a good change too. And then I'll cross off the leadership development section, because really that is superfluous. And like you said, there's privacy and fairness questions.
Yeah. Because obviously we would encourage our current staff, we want them to.
Yeah, it goes back to my original question. Haven't we been doing that? Like encouraging leadership? Like what's different?
Yeah. It's
Now
not
that
really
you have a
needed
list, that doesn't feel right.
here. Yeah. It's not needed here in this article, so awesome.
And then the last section is just review, and we've talked about it a couple of times. We'll review this annually, first through the personnel committee, and then through the school board. And then, just a statement that personnel committee, will prepare for and help manage a change in leadership. So, if and when something happens, this committee will be involved.
Wonderful. Good start.
Yeah, great suggested changes. So now the question is, I could make these changes and then present the whole manual to the board for approval on May 17th. Or if you prefer, I could make the changes in this section and you can look at it, the personnel committee could look at it one more time before I take it to the board.
I would look at it one more time.
Jennifer and Pam, is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll bring this back to the June 7th meeting, or the meeting in June. We'll look at it one more time. What I might do, no, I'll just bring it back one more time, because I'm sure there may be some minor edits, but then, I'll just make the minor edits and then we can take it to the board in the full manual in June.
Sounds good.
The last agenda item then is, well, besides other issues, is substitutes.
Yeah, and Amy French is not able to be here to talk about this, but there's a teachers on call report that you can look through. I will say that it's been, I think we hit the right balance in terms of finding substitutes. I think the key for us, and we've been short at times, don't get me wrong, and it's been frustrating for a lot of people, but I think those permanent substitutes made a huge difference for us. And I think we have 7 or 8 currently on staff. We've had some people resign, and then we've hired some, and it's right around 7 or 8. Thank goodness we've had them. And just as a reminder, we hire these people through Teachers on Call. We've been paying $200 per day. They come to our district regardless, and then they are assigned to serve as substitute teachers or substitute paras, wherever we need them. They've been filling in. And we've been paying more than other school districts, but we had to, and thank goodness we did, because I think we have a pretty good group of people there who've been helping us out. So, and that's really all I have for substitutes.
Well, that brings us to all other business. Anything else anybody has that they'd like to talk about at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to know where we're at with the CARES extended sick leave.
Yeah, we still have not received guidance yet. And so we don't have any information at this time. But Jackie and Amy are going to be right on it as soon as it comes through. And we've had, I think, 4 to 6 people now who have used up their paid sick leave and are now being unpaid if they have to stay at home, either for themselves or for a family member.
Related.
So it isn't. Yeah. So it could be like their child's class was quarantined, or their child is sick with COVID, or something like that. So we do have people who are being impacted. And, I don't go through the list to say, to judge people. But I will say that, I think there are very legitimate reasons, why. So, I don't see. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And,
wouldn't think there's not.
Yeah. It's
I'm sorry,
really
Holly?
been bothering me lately that we're not just automatically doing this for our staff. So I really hope that we can get the information soon so that we can discuss this at a board meeting. I just especially just knowing that there are staff already that are dealing with this that are unpaid and they're likely working. I mean, if their child is quarantined and they're at home, they're probably doing work. They're not just, taking a break at home. But it's bothering me quite a bit that we haven't been able to proceed with this.
Yeah, and there's a variety of ways that people have to use their sick time. So, Jim had made a comment, and I love Jim, don't get me wrong, but you should have enough sick days built up for long-term events. And I'm a seasoned teacher of 25 years, and I had to deplete my sick bank in order for a work comp situation to go all the way through, which wasn't my fault. It was a work situation. So, and that had to go legal. That was not in Red Wing. But I had to deplete everything in order for me to get paid, going forward. So there are circumstances that sometimes are out of people's control, much like a child that's sick, a family member that's sick, so I really want to be cognizant that we don't look at why people don't have sick days.
Oh,
And COVID,
yeah, definitely.
And obviously,
Yeah.
COVID is not gone. And we're still in the same situation in our county that we have been in this entire year. So even though our staff is vaccinated, obviously we're seeing it in our schools, we're seeing it in our community. And so people are still being affected, even though it feels like, we're finally to the end here. Our staff still has another month and, has had the last month where they're dealing with it. So,
and into the summer.
Yeah. And it could be an incentive for teachers that we're looking for to do summer school. If they know that we can provide the COVID leave for them throughout the summer, it just might be another thing where they know they won't have to worry about it if they do end up teaching during the summer.
I'm wondering if during the return to school plan tonight, maybe we should just briefly mention this. I think it's going to come up anyway, but that'd be the logical place to just discuss it, just like we just did.
Sounds
I'm
good.
all for it if you bring it up.
Perfect. Anything else?
Nope.
Wow, we're done before 4:45. Thanks
All
a lot,
right.
everyone.
Thank you.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Ooh, is this the one that goes to the media center? I don't think so.
good evening, everybody. This is the Monday evening, May 3rd, 2021 regular school board meeting. It is 6:01 and I will call this meeting to order. The first item of business is to take roll call. Mr. Bryant is excused this evening. He will not be joining us. Ms. Buck,
Here.
Mr. Derricks,
Here.
Ms. Ostendorf, here. Ms. Tower is running late from a work commitment and will be joining us momentarily. Ms. Tiff,
Here.
and Chair is here. We'll go ahead and rise and share the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Derricks is going to share our mission this evening.
The mission of the Red Wing Public Schools is to educate and inspire all students as they realize their full potential and become respectful, responsible, and productive citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Derricks. The agenda is in our board packet. Does anybody have any changes or additions to the agenda this evening?
Yep, I would like to delete the item about MOUs with the food service.
Okay. Any other changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda minus business item number 4 with the MOUs.
So moved.
Motion made by Anna,
Tiff, second.
second by Jennifer. Any other changes or comments? All right, seeing none, then we will begin our roll call vote with Ms. Ostendorf. Aye. Ms. Tiff,
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, so that passes 5-0. All right, next on our agenda is just to call your attention to the educational plan, which I very much always appreciate having a very large version of that here in our space at the IMC at the high school, but it's always in your agenda packet as well. Next item on the agenda is recognitions and upcoming events. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share?
I do. Coming up next week is the spring musical. It's called the 25th Annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. And there will be 4 performances on the 13th and the 15th will be one cast. And then the other 2 days on the 14th and the 16th will be a different cast. So tickets are on sale right now at the, you need to call Lisa Banks at the activities office to purchase tickets for those performances. So we are looking forward to seeing that. The kids have been working very hard on it.
Thank you.
And it is Teacher Appreciation Week, so just want to say thank you to all of the teachers who, especially this year and last year, have put in a lot more time and effort and stress and everything than they probably ever expected to have to do.
Other recognitions, upcoming events? I have just a few that I wanted to highlight. The school is going to have an on-site COVID vaccination for students and staff only this Friday, May 7th, 8:50 to 10:50 here at the high school. So that's just for students and staff. Kindergarten, there's going to be a kindergarten registration meeting coming up on May 6th at Burnside, 5 to 7. And also I want to make sure to call all your attention to the fact that there's a new spring/summer community ed and recreation brochure There's some wonderful happenings going on in our community this summer, so I encourage you all to take a moment to check in and see what kinds of classes you can sign up for. There's a lot of great things in there, so thank you to them. Also, prom is coming up for our juniors and seniors, I believe. Not sure exactly who is for seniors for sure, and their guests. And that's Saturday, May 22nd. It is outside, and the Grand March will be outside, as I understand it. And then, of course, we have to start talking about commencement. That's going to be Friday night, June 4th, 7 p.m. here in the high school. I believe plans are for outside.
Yes.
Yes, so more information to come on that. And I just also wanted to remind everybody on our school website, just on the main page, there is a calendar link. And if you check on that calendar, you can see all sorts of things happening in our district this week, who's playing where, what kinds of activities are happening in our schools. And so more information is on that, along with our e-news that comes out on Sundays. But if you're a member of our community or a parent and you just don't know what the calendar looks like this week, that's a really great place to see everything in one spot. And with that, any other recognitions or upcoming events? Seeing none, then I will move on to our public comment time. I do have 2 people here for public comment this evening. I will read our guidelines and expectations for public comment. We expect that comments be limited to 3 minutes per person and that a representative be selected to speak on behalf of a group of individuals. School board members will listen to public comment but will not discuss the topic at the meeting. The superintendent or the board chair may provide a response outlining steps the school district has taken or will take to address the concern. And then we expect that comments remain respectful and appropriate and not identify any current or former students, their families, or staff members by name. And so I will call on our first, Mr. Will.
Is this good right here? All right. All right. Okay. All right, we're good. All right, so I'm Zach Will. Dear school board members of ISD 256, we the Jefferson teachers and staff want to give you an insight into our experiences this year. Despite the general narrative for all of us, this has been our best year of teaching. The pandemic brought out the best practices and helped our ability to be flexible while enjoying our profession each and every day. Let us tell you why. We love having K-6 grades in one building. It has allowed us to interact on a whole new level as a staff, PLC, and with our students while following all COVID protocols. Our total staff is hyper-focused on our students' mental health and their social emotional learning. Not just our teachers, our custodians, paraprofessionals, office staff, all greet the students by name and check in with the students to be sure that we meet the kids where their needs arise. Our student success stories. We have many who have a history of behavior issues who have had 180-degree turnarounds. Students with speech concerns who did not speak up, who we can't keep quiet now. Students who have a sense of true belonging, who we practically have to shove out the doors at the end of the day. Success stories of our students this year are endless. Many of us were very reluctant to come to Jefferson at the start of the school year. With the end of the year approaching, we are all feeling reluctant to leave. This school year has breathed new life into many of us and gave us many reminders as to why we love what we do. As we've all worked with other great colleagues in the school districts, we have come together in taking the meaning of teamwork to a whole new level this year. We always put the needs of our K-6 students first and are always willing to help each other with anything. This educational mindset is hard to find, but us as a Jefferson teaching staff have come together as a group to improve the experiences of all within our building.
Thank you. And now we'll welcome Stokes.
Hi, I'm Mandy Stokes. We could stand here all night and tell you stories. Here is our ask. Will you consider keeping Jefferson open one more year? We know the reasons you voted in favor on January 19th of K-6 configurations, with the possibility of Jefferson for the following school year. 1, fluidity to change learning models due to changing dynamics of COVID. 2, time to plan for configurations for the 22-23 school year. 3, possible savings in transportation. And 4, continuity for families and students. Because we moved to neighborhood schools instead of grade level centers, if you vote to close Jefferson, our students in grades 1 through 6, which is approximately 86% of our students, will be going to their 3rd building in 3 years. We know the federal government has allocated COVID relief funds to states, the most recent being the largest. We are also aware that there has been strong community support with some access to different funding sources. We humbly ask that you look into combining these forces of good to make this happen. We are confident that our superintendent and administrative team would be able to bring a proposal to you that would allow this opportunity to have a small impact on the district's budget. We don't believe COVID is going away on June 4th or even September 7th. We respectfully ask that you sincerely take time to consider and discuss this request. We are all on Team Red Wing and will continue to advocate for our students, our community, and our schools. Appreciated. Zach Will, Drew Olinger, Delaney Schober, Tanisha Will, Mandy Stokes, Jordan Flynn, Michelle Swanson, Michelle Plonsky, Rachel Weiss, Trisha Perro, Aaron Anderson, Carrie Lindstrom, Gail Miller, Christine Chandler, and Scott Bolt. Thank you.
Thank you. So there might be some questions and answers and discussion then. So we go to the next topic and we'll circle back to that.
And you're welcome to stay. Thank you. That is all that I have for public comment at this evening. And so the next item on our agenda is return to school. Superintendent Anderson and Shonda Jordan.
Let me just see if Shonda's on here. Not this time. We don't have any recommended changes in any of our COVID protocols, so I gave Shonda the option of not participating tonight. Once again, our latest COVID data sheet was updated about 30 minutes ago, so you can look at that information on the website. One thing that kind of struck me was the number of our youngest learners in the county who are positive for COVID. So that's something we're looking at very carefully. In the past, there were very, very few.
Karsten, I hate to interrupt. Pam, I sent you a message. I can't hear you at all. It's just like super tiny, low, and muffled.
Holly, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's much better.
All right, I'll move up the table. Yeah, thanks for letting us know, Holly. I told Zach and Mandy, look at the speaker when you're talking. And they did just that. And of course, then when I start talking, I'd look right at the computer. So
Yeah, no, I could hear them perfectly clear. And then I'm like, wait, what am I missing?
yeah, sorry
I'm
about
checking my volume.
So the COVID data sheet is on our website. So please take a look at that. We update it every Monday after we have our weekly meeting with the county. There is a county vaccination survey that I'd like to send out to parents. You can see the suggested introduction to that survey. Again, it's at the request of Goodhue County Health and Human Services. They gave me a link and they'd like me to share it with parents regarding their plans for student vaccinations. It'd be conducted by the county, and questions about the content and confidentiality of the survey would go to Jody Skeen at the county. So again, before I sent that link out to parents, I just wanted to share that with you to see if there were any concerns. We won't be sharing our student data with the county, so there's no, information will not be disaggregated by gender or by racial group or anything like that. So I thought it would be okay, but I wanted to run it by you just in case. COVID leave is a continuing topic. We have not received any guidance on COVID leave at this time. But last week, Jackie reported that there were 4 staff members who have exhausted all of their sick leave for various reasons, and so they are taking some unpaid leave days at this time. There were 2 recent emails that were sent out to all board members, and I don't know if those 2 people are included in that list of the 4 that she reported. So I'm kind of telling people there are 4 to 6 people who are in that situation right now. It's a concern for the HR department, and I know for all of us. And so hopefully we can make that, hopefully we'll receive the guidance very soon so we can make a decision here at the board level. And again, I don't know when that guidance is going to come forth. And really that's all I have right now.
Any questions for the superintendent? Yes, Arlen.
Yeah, back to this survey here that the county wants to run and through our school district. I think if we're going to email, how are we notifying our students or parents and see? We're going to supply a survey link to parents regarding the plans for vaccinations. As far as that survey, I think we got to make very sure we stress that that is not a school's survey on the vaccinations. It is a county survey and it is totally optional. Put some stronger language that we're not gathering information on this as a school district. People understand it. Get something really firm out there that this is something, if we're going to allow it as a board to have them, I think it's okay to get that information for people that want to volunteer it, but they need to know they don't, everyone needs to know they're not obligated to give that information.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yep, and I can easily add that to the intro paragraph.
Other comments or suggestions, questions?
Yes.
Anna?
So what all are we waiting for guidance with that COVID leave, just to clarify?
Yeah, the federal government issues guidance as far as, well, a number of items related to COVID, but especially our COVID leave. And so I'll give you an example. Can we change the timing of the leave? So we'd want to have it retroactive to April 1st because the other leave, ended on March 30th. But can we shorten it to June 30th? Can we shorten it to August 31st instead of September 30th? That's just one example of a variation that we may or may not want to do. And the reason that's so important is that, there could be some significant funding, tens of thousands of dollars that could be in the balance depending on that decision. So that's why we've waited this long before coming up with a proposal, but it's becoming increasingly frustrating because we still don't have the guidance and the leave could have been started as of April 1st. So that's kind of why we're waiting at this time. I can certainly have Jackie give an updated or some updated information on May 17th. It sure would be nice to make a decision on that day one way or the other. I just don't know if we'll have guidance by then.
I understand the reasons for waiting, but for the people who are affected, like retroactive pay is great, but in the meantime, you have bills to pay, and if you're missing out on 5 to 10 days worth of pay, the longer we wait on this, the more uncomfortable I am with that, just, because I know how much that impacts people. And, we have multiple staff members where, both parents in the household may be school employees that, if they end up having to quarantine, it could really seriously impact their family finances, and single parents. And, even when there are two parents and one doesn't work for the district. Like it
Right.
just, I couldn't, go for a week and not get paid, right?
And there are lots of reasons why, people have exhausted their sick leave.
Right.
And, every person's circumstance is different. Obviously we want one rule that would impact everyone.
Right.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, when you've reached the end of the sick leave allotment. There's no doubt.
Jackie's actually in the queue. Maybe she can answer some of those questions we've had so far.
Hi, Karsten hit most of it. As he was talking, I put my name in the queue early on, so you'd know I was on the call. We are waiting. The IRS has not issued any guidance on the act yet. Neither has the Department of Labor. Because it's optional, the feeling is it is not high on their priority list to issue guidance. So we're about almost 2 months out from when the act was signed, and we have not seen anything around specifics. I mean, there's the guidance in the act, but usually there's specifics like, well, if this happens, this is what you do. And can we modify it? Do we have to implement it as written to get the tax credits? Those are the things we're waiting on at this point. A number of schools in our area are taking a risk in implementing variations. And I'm not sure if we want to go down that road if we don't know if the variations will be acceptable. For example, implementing it with a June 30th stop date instead of the September 30th stop date. Not issuing 10 new days and letting people use the remaining of their 10 original days. Those are just some of the variations that are out there right now.
Thank you, Jackie. Jennifer, you're in the queue, and then Arlen.
Thank you, Pam. I was just wondering if it would be possible to put together a plan by May 17th, even if we don't have all of the guidance, if we could at least discuss it as a board and have some sort of outline by Jackie and Carson that would give us an idea of what we might want to do going forward, even if we don't have all of the guidance there. I just, as I said in the personnel committee meeting earlier today, this is just something that's really been weighing on me. I think we need to do something for our staff as soon as we can. And waiting past May 17th, I just don't think that's acceptable. And I understand it's not completely in our control, but if we can at least keep it at the top of the agenda and have some plan that we can discuss, that would be great.
Arlen.
Yeah, I'd like some clarity on this when we get to that point, but one of the things that struck me is some of the COVID leave is so you can stay home to take care of your children because your request because we have a class quarantine. And on the surface, it looks like, hey, that's the right thing to do, and I certainly want to be supportive. But it's not only school district employees that might have kids in that classroom if we quarantine a class. How does our local industries and other places handle a situation like that with COVID leave? I'm 100% behind taking care of staff if they get COVID again or need COVID leave for themselves, but it gets a little tricky in my mind thinking this through. If they have a child that's not sick, it's a child that's just plain quarantined because we shut down the classroom because of quarantine requirements. And there's all kinds of people in our community that aren't teachers or school employees that have to react to that. So how do we treat that? No, I'll just leave it there. I don't have the answer. I'm not saying I'm against doing it either, but there's two different things when it comes to COVID leave. Why is the leave? Is it because you're sick? Is it because your child's sick? I fully support that. But when it's just a classroom quarantine situation, how does that fit into it?
Holly.
I was gonna say I completely agree with Jennifer. I would like to keep this on top of our priority list, not, because the state and the federal government doesn't have it, doesn't mean Red Wing can't, nor shouldn't. And Arlen, I just heard what you had to say. And if we had control of the whole community and their sick time, maybe we could, do something to support them, but we don't have control over that. Each industry in Red Wing has control of how they allow their, employees to have sick time. So I don't know how that's relevant. We make the decision for our staff. And in all fairness, I wish it was that way for everybody else. And the other thing is I'm not on any other board, so I don't know what's happening there. They could be allowing them sick time and we just don't know about it. But I think the one thing we have control over is how we feel about our employees and their ability to do their job without having to worry about financial stress. And like Anna and Jennifer pointed out, back pay is great, but the mortgage is due that day. And I know some places are allowing people to say, you know what, I'm out of sick days, I don't have time, but sometimes there's penalties. Sometimes they report things to a credit bureau. Sometimes, we have to be very cognizant that our employees feel that they can take that sick day to take care of themselves, their family, or whatever it may be, regardless of how the outside, industries are doing it. So I just think it's extremely critical that we keep this front and center. And if there's an application that we should have submitted or could have submitted, we do it. And then we wait for the guidelines and switch it up.
Jackie or Superintendent Anderson, is there any steps that we can take between now and the 17th to be prepared for making a decision on the 17th?
Jackie, I'll let you answer that one.
We can put together some scenarios and kind of the risk of moving forward with each scenario at this time, whether it's financial or compliance. We can put something together. I'm not counting on us having guidance from the Department of Labor or IRS by that time.
Well, and I would agree with my fellow board members. I think that we do owe our staff an answer, regardless of what the answer is. I think people need to know. I would be in support of, I think that we're in unprecedented times and that, affords some flexibility, and we need to hear, and take care of our own. And none of us have been through this before. We haven't been prepared for this, but as much as we can do to support our staff, I would be all for that. So whatever we can do between now and the 17th, I did put that on my list for our next agenda committee meeting. So it will definitely be on our next agenda, and hopefully we can have some actionable item by then, or at least have more information to make better decisions moving forward. Because you're right, we've been talking about this for 2 meetings now, 3 meetings.
I'd say probably 3 meetings.
3 meetings without an answer, and that, you're right, we need to make a decision and move forward. So, all right. Any other return to school items you'd like to share, Superintendent Anderson?
No, we have 1 month to go, so we just want everyone to finish strong. If it's students, staff members, visitors, we want people to follow social distancing. We want people to get vaccinated. We want people to test regularly and wear masks. And, we have 1 month until the end of the school year, so let's stick together and finish strong.
Well said. All right, next up on our agenda is Jefferson School Update. Kim Corey, Dean of Students at Jefferson, is joining us with some lovely faces there with her. So I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Corey.
Good morning, and thank you for letting us talk to you. Good morning, good evening. I have some friends with me to introduce their year at a little bit into Jefferson. And so I'm going to let them do most of the talking at the beginning. I'm going to ask them some questions off camera. So I'm going to move spots with Julius here, and they're going to introduce themselves to you, okay? All right. Okay, Julius, you prefer. All right. Okay, go on up. Julius, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Julius, and I'm in 6th grade.
Can you hear them?
We can.
Okay, talk nice and loud. Okay, DeParis.
My name is DeParis. I go to Jefferson School.
And what grade are you in?
I am in 3rd grade.
And they're brothers, so that's why they're here to talk to you. So I just have some questions that they're going to talk about their experience this year at Jefferson. So DeParis, what is your favorite thing about Jefferson?
That I get to see all the teachers that I saw from Burnside. I get to see Miss Stokes, Miss Flynn, Miss Lee, and yeah.
Yeah. Julius, what's your favorite thing about Jefferson?
Oh, I just watch my classmates and I was my backpack and stuff.
Yeah, they like that in the classroom eating stuff, don't you guys?
Hey, Julius, could you come a little bit closer to the computer? It may have been a problem on my end, but if you wouldn't mind repeating that one more time, I'd really appreciate
Like
it.
almost like you're yelling at your brother.
Well, maybe not that loud.
Okay, go ahead. Say again what you loved about, what's your favorite thing about Jefferson?
I like eating in the classroom, so I like eating in the classroom, so we don't have to walk all the way down to a cafeteria. And I like having my backpack and stuff in the classroom, so I don't have to run all the way to my locker.
DeParis, what do you love most about school? DeParis also just came to school after being off for a couple weeks for online learning. And today he ran around the corner and jumped into teachers' arms because he was so excited to get back to school. What's the thing that you love the most?
That I get to see all the teachers that I know, and I like to see them a lot.
Mm-hmm. Julius, what's your favorite thing? Does it have anything to do with outside?
I like playing soccer with my classmates.
I think recess is probably Julius's favorite thing, as he's asked me for what his reward is for doing this, and he said extra recess. So, and my last question, DeParis, what's different about Jefferson than it was for you before?
That you have to wear a mask.
Yeah, you have to wear a mask. That's right. How about you, Julius? How's it going? Is it better? Is it the same?
I haven't gotten in trouble that much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't thank you. So Julius and DeParis Blackhawk, say hi to mom. Wave to mom. Because she's watching. All right. Thanks, guys.
You guys did great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'm just going to share my screen, go quickly through the presentation. I think that's okay, right? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hopefully it works for you. So this is my Jefferson staff back in the summer when we were first putting up, we found the Jefferson sign after all these years in the basement. So it was repainted and we were really proud of that. Here are some celebrations for us. Of course, this is the school built in 1916. I have a very good friend who came to visit me, and she's a watercolor artist, and she made a watercolor painting. And probably our best part was we made it onto Saturday Night Live this year. And here's that picture that the 1 year Jefferson is open, we made it onto still shot on Saturday Night Live. Another thing is, of course, and some of you even maybe on the board, maybe even went to Jefferson School, but here's a picture from 1936, brought in by the Riegelmans, whose great-grandpa or grandpa is this little guy over here in 1936, and this is his great-grandson in school today. Of course, the newspaper Republican Eagle thankfully came and opened us the same year the last global pandemic happened. Just showing some different things of the kids social distancing this year, learning and playing in the gym. Another thing is our fun spaces we've turned this thing into. This is our speech space. It's speech and beach. So Christine Chandler is our speech para this year. So she helped make it into a fun space for the kids. They never miss their speech time. And then here is something that we call it Team Flokes, which is Mandy Stokes and Jordan Flynn, turn this into a calming space. Some kids needed some time by themselves. So in Jefferson, there are these nooks and crannies, as you can imagine. And this is a space that's within the classroom. So if a kid needs a break, they're not losing instructional time, but they're just changing their dynamic of how they're learning or how they're listening and can still be a part of the classroom. These are just different pictures of what we went through. One of my favorites was this was on one of my teacher's social medias that we had practiced the tornado drill. And then we forgot to tell the kids at 6:45 that evening there was going to be another practice drill. And so she got an email from a student saying, do I do the same thing that we practiced at school? I thought that was fun. One of the best things we learned this year is our staff goes out for recess on their own time and plays with the kids. So here they are jump roping, foursquare. In the wintertime, this was an apartment. It wasn't a snow fort. It was a snow apartment. And playing bingo when it's a rainy day downstairs. Things that we wanted to celebrate and the things that we put into practice this year is this was our philosophy. It was from mine as the Dean of Students all the way down to all the classrooms, custodians, staff, office staff. We definitely leaned in. We made it, especially when it was hard, we went that far. And we never let the so what happen. So what? We're all in a global pandemic. So what? We got to move on. And now what are we going to do about it? We never blame. We never shame. We always come to the table with solutions and ideas. And we love those kids hard, as Julius and DeParis showed you tonight. And we chose joy often, always. One of the hardest things for sometimes upper Midwestern people is to hold one another accountable and speak truth. We like to be passive aggressive. We've kind of turned that coin a little bit. We say, we practice how we let each other know how we're doing and how we're feeling. These are the things that we've learned as of now, May 3rd. Because we are a total SEL focused staff, things just went better. And as my staff would probably say, is it's their best year of teaching, which is not the norm for this particular year. We always cared for the child first while performing all the duties, still being a teacher, doing the curriculum, those things. Teachers playing with kids during recess, and then some of those behavior turnarounds. Like we have a very diverse population here. We're just as diverse as the other 4 schools. So we've had some major turnarounds by loving them hard and choosing kindness and choosing joy. And I just love this quote by Brene Brown about true belonging. And that's what we've learned here is that the kids felt like they belonged and the staff felt like they belonged. So we just came tonight to tell you how much we appreciate you opening Jefferson for us this year and how much fun we've had and the good times and the good memories that we've had, and look forward to whatever the future brings going forward. So now if you have any questions, happy to answer any.
Mrs. Corey, how many students are in Jefferson right now?
About 150. Of course, it depends on the quarantine day, as we all know. But about 150. We also house, or at least Jefferson is responsible for the 4th grade online learners. So those 30 or so, maybe 20, however many it is, I think it's like around mid-20s. They also were Jefferson students. So that's what we would do.
So those 4th grade online kids are included in the 150 total?
I think it's around 180 total with, I think it's like 150 in person and around 180. I don't have the exact number of today. It changes every day, you know.
Nikki, you're in the queue? No,
Or I think
Holly
Holly
first.
is first.
Holly first, thank you.
Thank you. Tell me about our compliance with ADA over at Jefferson.
Yeah.
And when we talk about inclusivity, how does that tie in? And for those of you who don't know what ADA is, it's the American with Disabilities Act. Every building that a public school uses has to be ADA compliant.
Yep, and as we know, a good question, Holly. As we know, Jefferson does not have an elevator. It doesn't have space. The bathrooms have been retrofitted, so I would say the bathroom. I mean, it's not state of the art with the ADA thing. I would probably ask more of the board of, like, if it was to ever look forward, what the plan would be for that. But we don't have any need for an elevator at this time. An elevator is what I think of first. We don't have any students or any adults in the building that have any needs at this time. So,
is it possible they don't get to go there because there isn't one?
I actually don't know that. I can't answer that.
Yeah, the real issue, like Kim said, is the elevator. There are other ADA issues as well, but the elevator is the most important one, especially if we ever decide to keep it open long term. We definitely want to add the elevator. If there was a child or a staff member with a need, like for example, he or she's in a wheelchair or some other reason, then we'd have that class down on first floor instead of second floor to address that issue. But there are some other ADA issues as well. I know Kevin Johnson has his list of particular issues with the building.
Yeah, I see the joy and the pure happiness of the kids and the staff. I drive by there twice a day. So I see it firsthand, and I don't discount, the two teachers that spoke at the beginning. I believe it was heartfelt and genuine and sincere and full of all the love they could bring. My biggest concern is finances. We've had to cut some teachers and some staff, and just the piece of the ADA is a big piece for me. So I really appreciate you bringing the goodness forward.
Vicki.
Well, I'm a Jefferson parent online, and I didn't, because I'm focused on, doing decisions on a board level and then focusing on my own home. And Kim and I both know, but the rest of you may not. And I wanted to share that with you just so you know. But we were struggling. And I asked for help, and Kim and all the staff was there immediately. They came and they created a plan for my son so he wouldn't fail and so he could keep up while he was going through his medical issues. So I'm very thankful that you were able to, do that. Man, you guys really came through like community, and it's really good to see how both staff and students are responding to your type of leadership in there. And I'm really thankful. I'm impressed, and I'm just with like you are. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for all students in the public school district. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Nikki.
Anna.
Thank you so much for sharing and for our speakers today and the emails that we got. I got to sub at Jefferson one day, and that was super cool. It's such a cool space to be in. From the financial aspect and the ADA aspect, as a board member, keeping Jefferson open is kind of a gosh, I don't know, kind of a thing. But being in there, and hearing from people who are there, I can definitely appreciate how much the space is loved, and how much people are enjoying it this year. So I guess the only thing that I just wanted to add was just that, obviously some really great things have happened at Jefferson this year. And if Jefferson isn't able to be part of, be open as a school into the future, how we can bring that sense of community into our other buildings and continue to keep what has worked. When we talk about going back to normal, maybe some things don't need to go back, you know, that what lessons have we learned that we can keep moving forward?
Yeah, I would probably go on top of that is that, you know, we know obviously the finances. I'm probably, I don't think I've missed a board meeting minute in the past, I don't know how many years. Fully aware. There is this community that it's not the building for us. And I think our teachers would say it. It doesn't matter. We could be in a ramshack out on Hay Creek. It wouldn't change I don't think it would change the kids' experience. And obviously keeping this all about student first. This staff is bar none. I will go to my dying breath about how fantastic they are. Those boys that spoke here, I mean, these are boys, it wasn't like I had to give lollipops and do all these things. And these are 2 of 180 kids that we could have asked to come and talk. And my kindergartners probably would have loved to have talked. And it's like keeping, you know, cats inside of a herd of cats, as we say. So they're all great. That's what's so great about the Jefferson, I would call it the Jefferson story, is that it isn't about the space. And I hear, I mean, you can't go away from it. I mean, if my child was in a wheelchair, yes, we'd have to, right? There'd be huge things that would come up with that. But that child that would be in a wheelchair, and I hate to say just wheelchair because I'm thinking of an elevator. It could be multiple different disabilities. Their experience, we would have wrapped it. Let's just say that was our only option for that child, which it's not. We would, my staff would have built stuff just to make sure that kid felt as included. So it is really about this teaching staff. Phenomenal. And it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and I'm not just saying that.
Superintendent Anderson?
Yeah, you kind of hinted at it already, Kim. You know, obviously there's school leadership, there's a teaching staff, community buy-in and support. What about class sizes? Was that a big factor in developing community throughout Jefferson and the rest of the district?
I would say at Jefferson, my teachers could have had 25 and they would have had the same experience. Class sizes, however, being half is ginormously, and that's a great word for me to use, I guess. It has made an incredible impact. They can get to all 12 of those kids or all 14 of those kids every single day, every single lesson. Talk about finances, is that, you know, really sustainable? But that I know I can speak that as a PLC leader for the 2 grades that I worked with this year, first and second. That's what made the changes. The class size going from 22 to 23, sure, or 23, but 22 to 11, you bet. It's been fantastic. So I appreciate all of this board, you know, investing in our kids' experience this year, for them to have a great year during COVID, even during distance learning. I can't imagine trying to distance teach with 25 kindergartners all at once. So I really appreciated that for the class sizes for those times.
Holly?
I just want to say, I really appreciate you bringing it back around to the staff. That you could have done this in a ice shed, you know, up at the athletic field, and you would have had that caring, loving, compassionate approach to kids and what they needed. And, you know, I went to St. Joe's, which was built just like Jefferson. And I loved my small class sizes. Every time I drive by Jefferson, I think of, you know, my old schoolhouse that had the cloakrooms and the little cubbies and places where, you know, we could, you know, just be kids. And I wish every kid could have that experience. And it's not possible anymore. So what you said about the staff making it come true for kids, I would really like to see more of that. And I'm not saying it's not happening at other sites, but that's the emotion and that's the energy I would love to see all throughout Red Wing. So thank you for bringing that to the forefront so that other people can, you know, okay, so Jefferson did what?
Yeah, thank you, Holly. That, because when we thought about our Jefferson story to share with you, and I had met with the teachers last week, and we talked through just that part. Well, wait a minute, we all have small class sizes, right? Everywhere has small class sizes, meaning in Red Wing right now. What made it different? And it really was that we were all committed to one another, no matter what. So Anna can say she was here on the rain day, unfortunately. And if it meant that Anna couldn't sub at that time, that didn't matter. I'd have 7 people who would say, I'll do it, I'll do it, I'll do it. And they don't hold grudges, they lift each other up. I'm here just to kind of drive the car, but they're the ones that make it fun and make it. And the Julius and DeParis wouldn't say Mrs. Corey's their favorite. They would say because I don't see them that often, right? That's not, their teachers are who's making it for them.
Well, and I think, I took down some notes about all the things that we have learned about that building. I remember back last fall when teachers at the very last minute had to switch classrooms, and all of a sudden they had a day or two to move to Jefferson and get their classrooms set up and ready. And I remember walking the halls and seeing 11 desks in a classroom and thinking, this is how it should be, right? If we were able to give that experience to every single kid, how different things would be. And so I'm so glad that you were able to give that community experience for our families and our kids. I think we've heard loudly and clearly from many, many letters and phone calls that we've received how wonderful that experience has been. So huge thank yous to you, Mrs. Corey, and your team there, because you've made lemonade out of lemons this year. So thank you for that. And I think if there was any way that we could move forward in keeping that model in our district, we would jump on that in a heartbeat. So
yeah, I do. One last thing is that, I could be Chris, I could be Jen, I could be Mike. We all could be here doing the same thing right now because there's great staff everywhere and there's great leadership everywhere. It's just because Jefferson is right, the one that we knew was going to be out, maybe. So I know that Mike could have done the same presentation, and Chris and Jen. So I can't thank them. They've been amazing. I mean, we're really happy. We're just celebrating Jefferson, knowing that our future is a little uncertain where theirs is not so much. So again, thank you for opening it up. It was interesting because most of my teachers were not happy to come to Jefferson, as they all know, because no one wanted to make the big move. And at that time, gosh, you guys think back to August. So I'm thankful. It's been fantastic, and we'll see where we go.
many thanks. Anything else from Mrs. Corey? All right.
Thanks for everything, Kim.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And thanks, Zach and Mandy, for joining us.
All right, school board reports. I'm just going to go down my list as it's listed here. Any updates from finance?
That was me, yes. An update from finance was, I wrote it down over here. The fact that we do not have the final numbers for one of the CARES checks, correct, Jackie?
Yeah, ESSER 3 funding is still being allocated.
Yes, ESSER 3. So we don't have the final numbers for that. We have ESSER 2 funding allocated to exact spots with exact numbers, almost to a T. And I think the big question out there is, what are we going to do when we find out the next amount? And how is that going to impact everything that we do forward? And we don't know. We just don't know. We have, the administrative team has put together some ideas of how they would like it to be spent or what they're hoping it can, cover. But I think once we get the final number and then the finance committee can go through it, we'll know more. There were no recommendations coming from the Finance Committee in terms of any actionable items. So Jim's not here, but Nikki, is there anything you'd like to add about the finance?
No, you pretty much covered everything, Holly.
Well, thank you. Jackie?
I think you covered it. It was a lot of reports.
Yes, a lot of reports. We did talk about how many students were down from last year, and maybe we just want to tell the public that again. How many students are we down from last year?
It's over 150. I don't have the exact number in front of me. And we're about 7 to 8 students off a budget right now.
Yeah.
Positive though.
Yes. So we're maintaining with a little up, but we are still down quite a bit of money in that realm, which is heartbreaking, right? And so we do talk about what can we do to bring kids back. And I think we've got some answers on my next board report with GCED, but I'll wait for that turn.
Sounds good. Operations, any updates? Mr. Bryant is not here, but anybody else on the committee have any updates they'd like to share?
You know, I can just briefly run through it. Brent Lexfold shared his list of food service equipment that we're purchasing. We're being pretty aggressive with that area because of the strong fund balance in the food service department, plus some better pricing than what we usually see, like for ovens and dishwashers, because there hasn't been the demand. So we're being aggressive, but it's within his budget. We also talked about the Twin Bluff Playground and some transportation issues. So more about that in future meetings.
Okay. Personnel, we met this evening. We talked about within the special education programming, we have due process facilitators. And so we talked about that. We spent some time on succession planning for if or when we would ever have to fill in a superintendent position due to leave or illness or a catastrophic event. So in the case that anything happens, we will have a plan in place. We won't have to try and build the plane as we fly it as much. We'll have a little bit of an outline that we can follow. So we've been working on that, and you will be seeing that shortly. And then we talked about our permanent substitutes. We did hire 5.
We have about 7 or 8 total.
7 or 8. We started with 5 and then we added a couple of more. And we talked about that, how good of a call that was to make, because this has been a difficult year to fill in substitutes positions, and we've had more success than many because of that hiring positions. Anything else I missed, committee? That was the 3 main things on our agenda tonight.
I think other than we aren't going to bring anything to the board May 17th around the succession planning. We're going to review it again at our next personnel committee and then bring back what the committee kind of looks at in June. I think it was June 7th. We meet again.
Sounds good. Yes, you will be saying that in the future. Anything, updates from legislative and policy committee?
No update, we didn't meet. That was 4 weeks or 3 weeks ago last we met.
All right.
We
Negotiations. We did receive a notice the last week that the teachers are ready to begin their negotiations. So that will be starting here coming up. And then we continue to work with the cooks and custodians. Equity team, I believe, is meeting next week. That got pushed back a week. And what else? Any updates on Community Ed Advisory Council?
No, we'll meet a couple weeks out yet.
Okay. And then GCED?
Yes, we did meet and we spent a lot of time talking about the online school for Goodhue County. Now, I haven't reviewed that with this board, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I've had so many meetings in the last week that my head is spinning with who I've talked to, so I apologize. But there's going to be one administrator for all of Goodhue County schools. All students will go to that online school. We talked about who gets the money for a student that attends the online school, and it will be their home district. So if there's 20 kids from Lake City and 30 kids from Red Wing, that money would still go into Red Wing and it would still go into Lake City. Does that make sense? We talked about class sizes and hiring staff. And Sherry was saying that she's, the cap at class sizes was 40 kids. And I was saying that's very, very high for an online experience for kids. And I was hoping that if she needed to ask for more staff, she would be willing to do that and not max teachers out at 40 students. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but that was something I personally felt was, pretty important. What else about the online school? They need to hire a principal, and that has been posted. Karsten, can you help me?
Oh, yeah, just as far as the class size limit of 40, that's a state requirement, so by law we have to follow it, but we don't want 38 kids in a class. We would definitely advocate for having 2 classrooms in that case. So Holly and I think all of us are seeing it the same way.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that's kind of the bulk of what that entailed.
Holly, this is Jennifer. Can I just ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is it what are the grade levels for the online school?
From my understanding, it's K-12.
Correct.
And I think I asked if it was early childhood 12, but I think it's K-12 for now. And then looking at if it needs to expand, it could expand in different ways. I mean, there could be a bubble of 5th graders and no 2nd graders. There'll have to be, and we did not talk about teachers teaching 2 or 3 grade levels, but I'm sure that will come up. If a teacher, if there's not enough kids or there's, too many kids, somebody might have to take a carryover. So there could be a lot of nuances in and out about how all that's structured. Sherry didn't seem to think that we were going to have a ton of kids apply, a normal amount, but she felt like the staffing that she was allocating was sufficient. And that's where I was just like, make sure that teachers aren't overloaded. Arlen, did you have a question?
Yeah, a little bit on the teachers. I challenged our administration that I would like to see us as a school district come up with our own online school. I thought that's where we were headed, and then all of a sudden it's coming back into the ed district. And the last I had heard is that it might be that Red Wing School District hires all or most of the teachers because we would have the majority of the people in those classes and then work it through there. So I'm just wondering, who is hiring the teachers? Is it going to be by local district or is it going by us and then an agreement back and forth? Some elaboration on that.
Those are really good questions, Arlen. And from my understanding is Sherry was going to hire the staffing. Am I wrong, Karsten? With an advisory team of superintendents from 3 different sites?
Yeah, I know that that GCD will be hiring the principal, and then some teachers might be hired by us, some by GCD. It kind of depends. So Sherry's going to be here in May for a workshop session, so we'll go over some of those in detail. But I'll give you 2 scenarios that might explain why there'd be a difference. We have about, let's say, 180 kids in one of our grades. And so we have so many teachers assigned to that grade. If 20 of them choose online, then we would advocate to have one of our teachers serve as that online teacher. So that teacher would be employed by Red Wing Schools, to follow through with those 20 kids. If we have a full slate, let's say no Red Wing kids are in the online school, but we get 20 from Goodhue, let's say, then Goodhue Public Schools might hire the teacher or GCED. So it kind of depends on numbers of kids and in our own particular class sizes.
I think it's extremely complex. And so I really appreciate your questions, Arlen, because they haven't been answered. And what Carson is saying in those scenarios may seem like a good idea. And then for some financial reason, they may not be a good idea. We may be taking the brunt of a financial, piece in some capacity. If, we're with 30 kids and Lake City has a sprinkle of 2 and Goodhue has a couple, maybe not Lake City, but I don't have the answers, and I don't think that there are answers yet.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to do. And then kind of getting to the complex nature of things. I think it also comes down to a question of supervision, because it would be it's a GCD program, GCD principal, but we could have teachers from different school districts or Red Wing and GCD who could be employed, and so that really complicates things.
And especially with different contracts.
Right.
Because they're not going to be under a GCED contract for teaching and para support. They're going to be under what contract?
Right. And really we'll know so much more after we know how many kids sign up and where they're residing. So I wish we had answers now, but we don't.
And I just want to say this and piggyback on Arlen. Arlen, I agree with you. I would like to see Red Wing go down the path of creating their own online school. And I'm just putting that on the record. I don't know how realistic and feasible it is in the next year. I'm not saying it shouldn't or couldn't happen. I would like that. But in the next year, the amount of work that had to go in and applying to be an online school or to get an online school going was a tremendous effort by 3 different administrators over at GCED. So I know Jen Grove was working on something for Red Wing, and I don't know if she gave that information over to Sherry or if she's kept it in-house with us, Karsten, but I know that she was doing some work on that also. I just know it's a tremendous undertaking.
Yeah, both Jen Grove and Kim Corey were working on it. GCD started their application process, I think, last August or September. And so that's why GCD got approved in March, which is a huge advantage for us. If we would have submitted our own application, it probably would have been determined this summer, which would have made it really tough for us to get things running. So it's timing, it's resource allocation. One thing as we were starting to develop our application, we had some questions about GCD's model, and GCD was very flexible in changing their model. So instead of a 4 through 12 school, at our request, it became a K-12 school, which was really important. There were some questions about what curriculum would be used, especially at the elementary school, but GCD, I think largely because most of the students will be Red Wing kids, they agreed to letting us use the Wonders curriculum, which we think is really important. We're very confident in the use of that curriculum, and we want continuity between grades. And so we're very pleased with that change. And so, they were flexible. They made some adjustments based on our particular needs, which made us feel good. And so in the end, we decided not to pursue the application because we thought it would be better to work on it together, with those changes.
Arlen?
Yeah, if I might continue on here. I think this is a point of vision and leadership, and I'm not saying that we could have got this all done in 1 year, but I see so many advantages for us to run our own program and have an online school that is the Red Wing identity. And the possibility of running a part-time, I'm sure it could work with GCD too. Maybe half a day involved with online learning, the other half coming in to use our wood shop or our music department or whatever it might be. But if we were to design an online school like people you see advertised on TV, we could keep all the revenue for kids coming in from other districts. We could be a model for other districts that say, why didn't we think of that and get that going? We got the ability, if we set that vision, and go that route. I know GCED did a lot of stuff to get things approved for this upcoming year with the online learning. We were on variance, I believe, last fall, trying to do some things with our online learning because of COVID, but it's up to the rest of the board. What I think doesn't matter by myself, but it's up to the rest of the board if they want to put that vision out here that we should do our own thing. I would urge all of our board members to think about this and say, are we just going to follow or are we going to lead? And I think this is an area where we really can step out and lead, because if we don't, we're not going to lose our students to GCED. We're still going to get our revenues. We're going to lose them to these schools that are advertised on TV and magazines and all these other places that, well, I guess, advertise on the internet. We're going to lose our students to them. And we got the ability. Let's kick it out there. Let's get it going in our district. There's my pep talk. Now it's up to the rest of the board to see if they have that same vision. Thank you.
Thank you, Arlen.
Nikki.
I agree with Arlen. You know, let them come in for the specials, wood shop, music, art, get them outside, get them outside, get them outside. So that I'll just advocate for that part, the outside part. Well, Arlen, thank you for advocating for the first part.
Go ahead, Preston.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking on what both Arlen and Nikki said, I think the shared time arrangements is really important. If there can be digital curriculum or digital classes in addition to the hands-on classes, because that differentiates this program or Red Wings program, whatever program, from all the others. And if we can, you know, we have such great offerings in the hands-on courses. And so if we can tie that in with some digital offerings, I think that's the best of both worlds. So that's a top priority for us. You know, I will say that other schools have had online schools for programs for years. You know, our goal now is to make the 5 Rivers Online, which is the name for this program, the best possible program, because we want our kids to stay in Red Wing, because we're going to offer a better program than what they can find elsewhere. You know, our parents will have access not only to the hands-on classes, but to field trips, to prom, to athletics, you know, to everything else that ties them to Red Wing. And so we just have to make that happen.
Holly.
As we move this forward in terms of where we want to take Red Wing, I would be open to having, and I know this is a big thing, but having another ad hoc committee that does report on how online is being structured through GCED and how that ties into Red Wing and what the roadblocks might be and areas that we can continue to push forward and look at doing our own online school. I feel like if we just kind of, and then it goes off to the side, other things could take precedence. So it's a way to keep, you know, that front and center. But I know adding another committee is a lot of responsibility and we don't have the time for everything always, but you know, I would be willing to jump on that.
Thank you, Holly. We will have, as a board, a dedicated time to learning everything, all the nooks and crannies of this online school. That will be our next workshop topic coming up at the end of the month. And so Sherry will be here to give us a presentation on what's happening, how it's going to be structured, how they're doing with staffing. There might even be a video to show you their vision. So I think we'll learn a whole lot more before June hits. And you know, I think those concerns and ideas are really valid, Arlen and Holly. I mean, I think that's how we started this train out. It's kind of morphed into something different, but I think if we can let Sherry show us kind of her vision and what's happening, what has happened, what's happening at the end of the month, and keep those wheels turning. Anything else on that? Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
One part I forgot to say when I was just speaking before, take a look at where we've come in the last year with our digital learning. And it was been part of our plan going along, but it's not just us. Every school in the state has gone to online learning at some point, I believe. Take a look at it. I'm old, but I'm young enough to realize we're not going to continue teaching the way we taught last year. Certain components of that will stay in person, but we're headed into online learning. Every district is going to be heading into online learning more and more every year. And this past year with COVID has accelerated that whole process drastically. And we can either be a leader or a follower. If you're going to be a follower, you're going to be left behind. So that's where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, and I'll only add that we can be a leader with others. And so I think that's the difference, possibly in perspective, because I think Five Rivers Online with Red Wing and other member schools could be outstanding. So that's my statement.
Pam, can I just?
Yes, go ahead, Jennifer.
This is Jennifer. Just about that, I was thinking at our workshop, will we have the opportunity to give ideas to Sherry of things that we might want to see included in the online school if she doesn't bring them up if they're not already?
Yeah, in fact, I'll talk to Sherry because I'm wondering if we can get some of those comments or suggestions before the meeting so that we can be ready for that. Yeah. And, also during the meeting, but it'd be nice to have some of that beforehand.
Great idea. All right, any other committees that anyone would like to report on before we move to administrative reports? Anything else, anyone? All right, then Superintendent Anderson, back to you for administrative reports.
All right, I'm just taking some notes here. Great. Everything's listed in the board packet, so I won't go over, every item in detail, but I'm always here for questions. First of all, Donna Latouf Langhans, the Red Wing High School head cook, was named the district recipient of this year's Rotary Club's Service Above Self Award. It's a really nice honor, and Donna deserves that honor for her work this year and for the last 5 or 6 years that she's been the head cook. So the award ceremony is tomorrow at the St. James, and I'm really excited for that. It's a special day put on by the Rotary Club. On April 19th, there was a student walkout. We talked about it a little bit at the last board meeting, but if you have any more questions, feel free to ask. There was also, I think an appropriate response to the guilty verdicts in the Chauvin trial. And you can see what the school district did as far as a response. Things went very well here. And so I'm proud of our students and staff for how that was handled. There was a question about the REACH program for next year and how the budget reconciliation process impacted that program. It will look different, but Principal Nemenich explained that he wants to maintain the social emotional learning aspects of the program while adding some in-school credit recovery options for kids. So he's still working on staffing, so I don't have the specifics yet, but I'm hoping that Mr. Nemenich could come to a meeting, give a report on that, after some of those things are finalized. So I would imagine probably in June, maybe July, but probably June, he could come and do that. There is a public hearing on May 5th, about how the district uses federal Title VI dollars to provide services to our American Indian children. Again, this is a federal requirement. We have to have a public hearing, and it's really the main thrust is for the school district officials to hear feedback from parents, those kids impacted. So that's the primary purpose. I did post it as a potential quorum for board members. There won't be discussions or really participation, because we're hearing from the public. So you're invited to listen, but it's not required in any way. We take that feedback as we consider revising the Title VI application each year. about $30,000 in revenue. For many years, we've used almost everything on reimbursing Prairie Island Indian community for the liaisons that they have in our schools. So that's what we've done in the past, and that's our proposal for this year too. I did list kind of the pros and cons of location of the Twin Bluff Playground. I know we talked about that at the last board meeting. And so Alan Gaylor provided me the pros and cons list that's included in the report there. Another notice, our first student bus company was sold to a company in Sweden. So you'll probably see some news releases in July and August. First student was spotted in its entirety. And there's not another bus company owned by this company. So we fully anticipate that the level of service and personnel will stay the same. But I wanted to report out to you in case you start seeing the news and have some questions. So we're very confident that there will not be a significant impact on the school district, if anything. Pam, do you want to go over the superintendent evaluation part?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the superintendent and Vice Chair Bryant and I have been talking about the mid-year superintendent evaluation. We've put together a survey, if you will, that I will be sending out tomorrow to you, and I would ask that you take some time to read through it and fill it out and submit it by 5 p.m. next Monday. That'd be the 10th. And the reason I ask for that is because Jim and I are meeting on the 11th to review those results and put together some discussion, because on the 17th, May 17th, which is our next board meeting, we will be having a closed session to go through those results with the superintendent at that time. And it is mine and Mr. Bryant's intention that the public summary then will be shared on June 7th. So that's kind of the timeline for that. The mid-year evaluation is just a dip your toe in the water kind of how are things going. It's not the full-blown evaluation that we do in the late fall. But the survey will include the goals that the board put forward for the superintendent last November, along with the strategic directions, because he is in charge of the district and how those things are handled. So we'll be able to give him some feedback on the 17th. Any questions on that? Okay. Oh, Holly?
I do, yeah. I'm hearing two things. I'm hearing a survey and I'm hearing mid-year evaluation.
Yes, the survey is the mid-year evaluation is a survey. There's 4 goals listed, and then the strategic directions. Each of those items are listed, and then you can rate how the superintendent is doing on each of those on a 5-point scale.
Is this different than what has been filled out in the past?
Yes, and hopefully better. Last year's midterm evaluation, we had, if you remember, red, yellow, green, only 3 ways to rate the superintendent's evaluation. This time we're going back to the 5-point scale, which is what we used in November. So we'll be saying the same numbers instead from now on. It's more consistent, that 5-point scale. Effective, highly effective, effective, developing,
needs improvement, and not using.
Yeah, not effective.
Is it tied to the MSBA?
Yes.
And so they put this out?
Or actually, there's a slight difference, and that is right now we have the 2 evaluations of me each year. The one in the fall is almost entirely based on the School Board Association evaluation instrument. That's what Pam is referring to. This one is based on the education plan and other goals that the school board, is giving me.
So who developed this survey?
Well, I'm the one who kind of drafted it, but then Pam and Jim took a look at it just this morning. Yeah.
We met to review the what will be sent out. And again, this mid-year evaluation, this is the second time that we've ever done a mid-year evaluation. We decided that it's really important to not just be evaluating one time a year. We should be checking in with the superintendent on a regular basis. If we're setting goals for the superintendent, then we should be monitoring how those are going. So this is our opportunity to say, these are the goals we set for you in November. How are they going? Have you made progress on them? Have you not made progress?
Right. I get the reason for the mid-year. I get that. My question is around the actual survey and how it was vetted, and, you know, how are we looking at it in terms of legalities and different components like that? I mean, because you don't just send out a survey to evaluate a teacher because I made up a survey. Like, it's like a formal process.
Which is why I wanted to go back to using the 5-point scale. The 5-point scale is what we've used for the full evaluation in November. And so it's the same concept of, you know, looking at and tabulating numbers. Is he highly effective? Is he not effective? So hopefully it will work out. This is a work in progress. This is only the second time we've ever done a mid-year evaluation. So I think the biggest takeaway and the biggest piece right now is to review those goals for the superintendent and to have a dialogue with him in a closed session at our next board meeting to give him feedback. Because bottom line is we want to be able to say things are going well in these areas, things are not going well in these areas. Here's some areas for growth and improvement. We need to see X, Y, and Z at the next evaluation.
Okay, so I'll follow it up with this question. Besides you, Jim, and Karsten, who else has reviewed the survey?
Nobody that I know of.
Correct.
That doesn't feel right to me. Help me understand how that's a legal evaluation. Help me understand how that's best practice. Help me understand that. And I'm not questioning the mid-year reason.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the legality questions are. I mean, I can certainly call the lawyer in the morning if you'd like and run it by him and see. I'm not really sure why there's an issue with legality. This is a board that's evaluating its employee, right? That's
right, but we all didn't have input on the survey. So there's multiple kind of layers. Like when we look at the MSBA survey, we were, you know, like, this is what it is. This is kind of like, oh, here you go. Here's a survey we developed. And I'm not saying it's not good. It could be phenomenal. It just feels kind of put together and for good reason, because of the colors of the last one. I'm just maybe run it by the attorney.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. And again, like I said, this is the second time ever that this board has done a midterm evaluation. Yeah. And when we decided a couple of years ago to institute a mid-year evaluation, what we wanted to do was to just focus on what the goals were that the board set out for the superintendent. So the purpose of this evaluation is to look at those goals. And on a 5-point scale, how is he doing on those goals? Is he highly effective? Is he effective? Is he not effective? You'll see the 5-point scale. And then every goal will have, there's an open box that you can comment on what the superintendent's goal was and how you think he is doing on that.
And nobody from MSBA reviewed it?
No.
Is that common, Karsten? Do you know?
You know, I really don't know. What we're trying to do is follow the general gist of the guidance that MSBA developed a few years ago. In previous years, you know, there's just one evaluation each year, is always based on this the evaluation instrument that MSBA had developed. But then they came out with this guidance suggesting 2 evaluations each year. And so we're roughly following that. But we have 2 different types. So we have, you know, the one in the fall that's based primarily on the School Board Association evaluation instrument. We're still using that one. And then the one in the spring is based on progress towards education plan. and other goals. So, but MSBA didn't develop this particular survey or evaluation instrument.
And if you'd like, Holly, I can certainly call Gail Gilman in the morning. She's the one that's helped us with our superintendent evaluations and run this by her as well.
I think that would probably be a good idea, just because I didn't realize it was going to be not related, but related. Because the last one with the colors, you want to show growth in ways that you can measure it. But if we change surveys, so anyways, Arlen's in the queue.
Go ahead, Arlen.
Yeah, I think this is getting way overthought, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody by saying that.
I can't hear you, Arlen.
I think this is getting way overthought, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody when I say this, but it is our duty to meet with the superintendent and evaluate his progress on our goals that we've set. And it sounds to me like the survey is going to say what were our goals and objectives we'd like you to do, and you're going to have us rate them. And if that's not enough, that's just the way. If we don't like the survey, we can do another one, I guess. But I don't see what the legality part of this is coming up. I sure hope we aren't paying for another legal opinion. I guess it's through the MSBA, we're okay on it, but I'm just ready to have the survey and let's take it and see where it goes.
I will call Dawn Gail Gilman in the morning and talk to her about it. She's the superintendent. No, it's not Dawn. I will call MSBA tomorrow and get their opinion on it. I will send them our survey and see if they have any feedback for us before I send that out to you. All right. Anything else, Superintendent Anderson?
That's all I have except for the upcoming meetings, and in particular, we have the online learning as a board workshop in May, and then we've had a few different possibilities as far as workshops this summer. One has to do with slurs, racial slurs, and otherwise that I think we need to really chat about. But we need to make sure we have the information that we need and some expertise, I think, to help us, go through that process. So don't be surprised if that's a suggestion sometime this summer. Again, I'm hoping we can have 3 to 5 or even up to 6, workshops focused on equity, over the next 12 months, because I think it's a really important topic. Anyway, that's all I have besides what's listed in the report.
All right, next on our agenda is the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything that they would like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, I see nobody in the queue, so then I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Who is that?
I think there's a Holly.
Holly and Anna. All right, motion, we'll give it to you, Holly. Motion made by Holly, seconded by Anna. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, then we will take a roll call vote, starting with you, Ms. Tower.
Aye.
Ms. Tift?
Aye.
Ms. Buck?
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. So the consent agenda passes 6-0. All right, donations and grants.
All right, let me find the right page here. I was jumping ahead in my agenda. We have a $500 donation from the Red Wing Foundation for the Winger Flight Path program. And the school foundation donates so much to the school district, and we're so appreciative of this additional grant.
Anna will make a motion to approve the resolution accepting donations and grants.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jennifer second. Any other comments, questions, discussion? All right, we'll take a roll call vote to accept The resolution accepting donations and grants, starting with Ms. Tiff.
Aye.
Ms. Buck,
Aye.
Mr. Derricks,
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf,
Aye.
Ms. Tower,
Aye.
and chair votes aye, so that passes 6-0. MOU has been taken off of the agenda, so the last thing is future topics and upcoming meetings. We've kind of talked about all that already. The hearing this week, May 17th is a school board meeting. The 24th is the next workshop. And then all of our committees are listed in a board packet. Any other meetings or upcoming events that people would like to highlight?
We have not determined the topic for the June workshop, correct? 28th.
Correct.
Still to be determined. Okay.
Yeah, so if you have some suggestions for that, things that are higher priority for you, let us know. We review that list pretty much every time that we meet for the agenda committee, so definitely let us know. All right, with that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Holly, adjourn, second? Or was that you, Nikki?
No, that was Holly, but I'll second that.
Okay, Nikki's gonna second, fabulous. We'll take a roll call vote, starting with you, Ms. Buck.
Aye.
Mr. Derricks?
Aye.
Ms. Ostendorf?
Aye.
Ms. Tower?
Aye.
Ms. Tift?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We are adjourned at 7:37. Thank you, everybody.
See y'all later.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You-
Bye, everyone.
Oh, good. I'm glad you remembered that, Jennifer.